Welcome to the Missouri Woods and Water Podcast. I'm your host, Nate Thomas, by himself today. Andy is out of town and Mike is busy at work. So I'm flying solo. I'm going to make this intro pretty short because we got a decently long show with a lot of good information today, which is awesome. We have Nate Sellers with Average Jack Archery and Huntworth Gear. He's on our show today to talk about archery. And then at the very end, we get into Vertek, which is Huntworth's new camo pattern that just came out on August 1st. So it's a pretty damn cool episode. We get into, I like talking to archery shop owners about what they do with their personal bows, and that's basically what we do. So it's a great show. Let's get through our sponsors real quick before we hop into the show today. Let's just start with Huntworth Gear, huntworthgear.com. Use our code MWW15 for 15% off. That is 15% off right now on Tarnin and Disruption. If you buy the new Vertek pattern, that won't work with it as far as we know. So, they do have sales periodically, and honestly, that stuff's so affordable in the first place. It's not that big of a deal. So check them out, huntworthgear.com. We're huge fans of it, obviously. Alps Outdoors, use our code 2024 Woods Water for 30% off. Last week, me and Micah did our show on a new deer hunter, a rifle hunter, and he talked about that $30 pack from Alps. So $30 is nothing, but if you use the code, it's like $20 almost. So, hey, every little dollar helps here, and they got some packs that are more expensive than that. So check them out. Reveal Cameras by Tacticam just got our new 3.0s and Pro 3.0s. They're not out in the woods yet, but hopefully soon. And we're trying to test them out and kind of compare them to our Gen 2s and what we like, what are different, that sort of stuff. So check them out. Reveal Cameras by Tacticam. Habitat Works, give our buddy Dustin Williams a call. habitatworksllc at gmail.com. And mention us when you call, and you get 15% off any service he gives you, which is hell of a savings because, even just like a plan review is huge. So give him a call. Black Ovis, use our code MWW10 for 10% off. They've got the custom arrow ID builder. If you haven't done it yet, you really ought to get on it. Nate talks about Pennsylvania being a state that's a little later, but we've got 45 days basically from the time I'm talking at this moment until our archery season starts. If you don't have your arrows yet, you probably need to get on it. You can order them today, and I bet by the end of the week, you'll have them. So check them out, blackovis.com, Camo Fire, hop on the app. I'm not going to get on it today, but they've got a rotating door of deals. Every 24 hours it switches, and you've got a new deal on different products that you can get most of on Black Ovis. So check them out. On X, use our code MWW20 for 20% off on the website. Got to do it on the website. Save the 20% off the elite plan and get all 50 states. And that way, if you're going different places, I think they also have a 2-state plan, but it'd just be nice to be able to go anywhere. When I went to the elite, I was happy. Let me just say that, And then finally, Athlon Optics, athlonoptics.com. Find a dealer near you. If you can't find one, get a hold of us. Our buddy Jesse Bunger over at Explicit Outdoors is a great dealer. And we might have another guy that's a dealer too. I need to talk to him again to see if he actually is a dealer. But man, Athlon, they've got great stuff. Me and Micah recommended the Neos for the new Budget Hunter, which is a 3x9, $120 scope, all the way up to the Aries and the ones that we use today. So they've got something for everybody, lifetime warranty, great company, great people. So give them a look. That is finally, Zamberlan boots. Dude, they're awesome boots. I have the exact same pair that I started with 5 years ago. Still wearing them. Don't even look like they're barely used, man. They're awesome. Check them out, zamberlanusa.com. Now we're done. Let's get into our show with Nate Sellers, Average Jack Archery. This is the Missouri Woods and Water Podcast. All right. With us tonight, we have got Nate Sellers, well, man of many titles, but owner of Average Jack Archery. Nate, what's up, man?
Not much, buddy. Well, actually, that's a huge lie. Everything is up right now. It's August 1st. It's a launch day for Huntworth. Shop's packed. It's a big, busy day, but I'm happy to be on.
Yeah. Well, and anytime you have two Nates in one room, gold is gonna happen, right?
The IQ just goes up like 50
raises.
points
Yeah.
automatically. We haven't
Yeah.
even said anything yet.
Right. It just sucks for me because this is scientific fact. It's not anything that I'm not making it up. These are, you can look it up, Google it if you want to know, but it's scientific fact that when you're in the same room with somebody named Micah and Andrew, your IQ goes down. And so every
Yeah.
time I do a show, I get dumber. So that's why
I think
nobody
Harvard did a research study on that. Brown University. Yeah.
probably they waste their money
It's
on
a
stupid shit
shame.
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, man, we're excited to talk today. I mean, today is August 1st, like you were saying. This is going to come out uh 5 days from now, so August 6th, I think, probably, without looking at the calendar. And this is the time of year, there are a lot of folks that shoot their bows year round, but there's also a lot of folks that don't. I've shot funny, the more I've gotten into the hunting world, the less I've been able to shoot all year because of how busy you
Mhm.
get with other stuff. And so I try to shoot year round. It doesn't always work that way. But to be honest, a lot of folks get their bows out right about this time of year and they start shooting, or they start going and getting new bows. Like you said, the shop's packed, starting to look for that new bow, that new one they want, whatever. And so it's a nice time to talk about archery. I think August hits and people start getting that excitement about whitetail season right around the corner, elk season right around the corner. I know the guys are leaving for Colorado in less than a month now. So,
Mhm.
um, it's that time that, people get excited. So thought we'd talk about a little bit of archery stuff. And then we're going to get into Vertek also, because that launched today, like you said. For our listeners, you saw me put a video out a couple days before the launch, and then the launch date today, or 5 days ago when you hear this. A lot of buzz probably around it, and for good reason, man. It's going to, well, we can save it for later, but I feel like I'm finally going to be the guy that is no longer digital camo. I love
Mhm.
disruption like it's a child of mine, but I just had this new baby and it's cute.
It's
And
become a favorite. Yeah.
it's
No,
pretty
I'm the
sweet.
same boat. I love disruption. I'm a sucker for that digital. I like kind of that forward thinking stuff, but Vertec might change my opinion on that. So yeah,
Yep.
we'll definitely talk about that.
But before we get into it, why don't you introduce yourself, and tell everybody a little bit about Average Jack Archery, and then we'll get into some bow talk.
Sure. So my name is Nate Sellers. I own Average Check Archery, the YouTube channel. I've been making content for the archery industry for about a decade. I own the bow shop in Phillipsburg, PA, which is in central Pennsylvania, right smack in the middle of the rectangle. Average Check Archery Pro Shop and Range. We deal in a lot of your big brands, your Matthews Elite, your PSC, your Bear, 10-point Wicked Ridge crossbows. We work on everything. There's not a single compound or crossbow or even a recurve traditional longbow setup that we don't work on, and sell all the accessories and arrows and broadheads you could shake a stick at. And so it gives me a really cool perspective, having been around the hunting industry and the archery industry that long. When I start seeing people in the shop and working with them and tuning their bows and talking equipment, and they're showing me their trail cam pictures and the deer their nephew shot last year and all that sort of stuff, it gives me a very unique perspective from the digital side, where everything's just kind of an avatar to a name, whereas you get
Mm-hmm.
that human interaction on a daily basis. We're very busy right now. It's August. Pennsylvania's odd. We open up a lot later in the year than a lot of other states. A lot of states open up in September. We don't open up usually till that last weekend in September, first weekend in October. And so, guys, right now, still about 2 months yet before they can really start hitting the woods here, at least here in PA. But
Mm-hmm.
it's become more and more common for guys to start traveling out of state, New York, Ohio, Maryland. And so they're starting to really come out of the woodwork right now, pull that old bow out. Oh, crap, I need new strings, or my broadheads aren't flying right, or whatever. So, yeah, we're definitely getting busy, and it's a great time to be a bow shop owner. It's a great time to start thinking about archery season.
Yeah, and yeah, because like I said, August 1st, a lot of states, like, we're September 15th, so 45 days essentially. And some people haven't thought about, well, am I going to get a new bow this year, or do I need new strings? What broadheads am I going to shoot this year? I'm bored with whatever. Do I have enough arrows? That's always a funny one for me. Like, oh crap, I'm down to 3 arrows. Uh, I mean, I guess you can roll the dice and see how it goes, but that freaks me out. I get freaked out when I get under a dozen, and I usually run with 2 dozen arrows. And
Yeah.
when those arrows get down to under a dozen as a group, I move on. And I'm probably moving on a little fast, but it's usually what I do. Now with my current arrow setup, I might just continue to add to the stable of arrows, I guess, because I'm not changing links anymore. But yeah, so you've seen kind of every new thing that came out. I mean, we were at ATA with you, so you saw a lot of the new bows, the companies that were there, and then obviously the companies you work with that weren't there. You know what their new bows are like. So, what are? It's kind of hard for me to ask this question. I'm not a new bow guy, so I do finally have a new bow. I think you and I have talked about this before last season. I shot a 2010 Vertek Assassin. Ever since I started, well, I take that back. I shot a old bear something. No, it wasn't a bear. It was what's the Hoyt off brand? Like Wicked Ridge is to 10 point. What was the Hoyt? Was it Reflex?
Oh,
Reflex
I
by
couldn't tell you. Maybe
old
Hoyt bought
bow.
out Reflex at one
Yeah,
point.
something
Sure.
like that. And that was the very first bow I had. I had it for maybe one season. Then I got this Bowtech Assassin I bought from my brother-in-law at the time. And I shot that bow until last season. Same bow. I took it to Colorado. I've had it restrung several times, obviously, during that time. And I'm always been one of those guys, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Hmm.
I shot good with the thing, loved it, but I finally got convinced to go into a new bow, and I went with the Elite Era, um, which is what's the term?
Carbon.
Carbon bow. Thank you, and I love it. I'm a big fan of it. But you've seen all the different new companies or companies coming out with these new bows. What are some really cool things that you've seen in specific bows this year that have made you either recommend it to a customer or made you think, hey, I might try this out, see how this goes?
So I actually and by the time this episode launches, the video will actually be out. I just did kind of like my bow 2024 wrap up, going through different price points, starting at the bottom,
Yep.
working your way up, getting a flagship level. And we carry I mean, we can't carry all the brands in our store due to dealer restrictions, but we have a lot. And so Matthews is in there, Bear is in there, PSE and Elite for sure. And I shoot an Elite Ethos, so that's a longer draw aluminum version of the Era. Same
Mhm.
cam system, same all tunability, whatever. But there's a lot of different ways that bow companies appeal to their current users as well as users they're trying to bring into the fold. And so companies have kind of done it a little bit differently this year. So for example, Elite for many years was kind of a longer axle to axle company. I think the shortest bow they made for the longest time was like 32 inches, right?
Well,
And
I
I
didn't
own an
shoot them for a
energy.
long time.
Right. And
Yeah.
I was a Energy 35 user for years. I still have it. It's sitting in my basement, hanging on a
Mhm.
hook there. It's my backup bow. It's a great shooting bow. And Matthews is always kind of known for the shorter axle to axle stuff. And Prime's always kind of known for their high-end technology. And Bear's known for their price point. So, kind of picking from the user perspective, what is actually going to kind of appeal to you the most? So for me, I'm a huge tinkerer. And I think most people nowadays are really starting to actually kind of understand that working on a bow is not this giant scary thing. You don't necessarily need a bow shop to be able to do a lot of tuning things. You don't need a press all the time to do a lot of tuning things. And so Elite Archery for me makes a lot of sense. All the draw length adjustments, it's a rotating module, the set technology to work on paper tears. And this year they developed the Cairo and the Ethos, which are both 33-inch platforms, which is on the longer side. Most companies make a longer and a shorter bow. Elite basically said, now we're going to pick a very forgiving axle to axle length and do that. So if you're into the tinkering and tuning, cable stop, limb stop, all sort of stuff, definitely look at Elite. If you're into lightweight bows, it's really tough to beat the Matthews 29 and a half, the lift. I mean, that thing, it's an aluminum bow and it comes in at 4 pounds or less. That's crazy. That is crazy. And this
Yeah.
year, Matthews made a decision to make it faster. And they did. I mean, that lift is super quiet and super quick. And so if you're really looking to get a long range bow. A lot of guys starting to do tack nowadays. They want to get more speed out of a bow so they can shoot longer distance. That's been a huge one. It's tough to say that Bear is not the best bow for the money on the market. They have like 18 different bows from like $450 to $650. And in my video, I break down a couple of the biggest sellers, the Legend XR, the Whitetail Max, the Species. And so even though the changes year to year from company to company might be a little bit different in terms of what the actual bow looks like or how it functions, how they're trying to appease an audience or bring new shooters into the fold is definitely something you as a new consumer want to look at. And when someone comes into my store, there's two questions I ask them. One, what's your price point? Because I'm not going to put a $1,300 bow or that Era, which is a 15, 16, $1,700 bow in your hand if it's
Right.
nowhere in your price point. I don't care how much you like it. If you can't afford it, there's no point in shooting it.
Might as well not
Same
waste our
thing.
time.
Might
Yeah.
as well not waste your time. So I'm going to always ask you what your price point. I don't care what your price point is. You can buy the cheapest thing for me, the most expensive thing for me. Doesn't matter. And then the second thing is going to then go off of what are you trying to get out of this bow? You trying to get a hunting bow that you do pull out in August and you put away in December, or are you trying to have a bow that you can then take to a tack event? Maybe you can go shoot in the IBO or the ASA circuit with it. Maybe you want to shoot it in our indoor winter league with spots. There are some different crossover type bows that I might want to push you in a direction towards. So it as much as I like to think, okay, we could say this is the best bow of the year and this is whatever, it always comes down to how you're going to end up using that product. And there's lots of different ways
Yeah.
to do it nowadays.
Well, and we had a listener. This has been a few months ago, probably. We had an archery show similar to the one you and I are doing now, not the same, but and after the show, he reached out and he's like, I hate how many options there are. Why are there so many options? Because it's overwhelming for me, which I guess I get for someone who's just like buying a bow. But
Absolutely.
when you go into an archery shop, which is what I would recommend, if there's any new hunter out there that is wanting to get a bow, I hope that you've got a legitimate archery shop around you, because that sells, several brands that can put you into a few, because until you shoot them, you don't know what you like. I mean, you and I are a perfect example. We have the same name, but we couldn't be more different. You're like
Correct.
6'5", 6'6", right?
Yeah. 6'4". Yeah. 31
6'4",
inch draw. Yeah.
and I'm 5'7" with a 26 and that 3/4 inch draw. So let's call it a 27 because it makes me feel better.
That was a
We
round up.
we
Round it up.
we could not be more different when it comes to what we are going to get out of bows, right? I ran that Vertek Assassin for so long because it was what I thought was a 30-inch axle. It might even been smaller than that, and it was so light, dude. And then I would go into bow shops with, Russell, Andy, Micah, whoever, and I'd pick up that new Matthews, whatever they were, like the Triax when it came out. Micah had it, or whatever the Matthews was after that one. I always forget names. Helon.
The Halon.
Anyways,
Yep.
Halon. And they were twice as heavy as my Assassin was. And I'd be like, nah, I'm good. I got this little ass bow that's light, and I still shoot just as good as you guys do with your new ones. So I'll just keep doing this, Plus, I'm not worried about, hitting it against a tree or whatever. It's not pretty anymore. So what I am looking for might be totally different than what Andy, or you, like Andy and you are both tall guys. Andy's left-handed and tall.
Yep.
That guy has got total issues when it comes to, looking at bows, right? I can walk into pretty much any bow store and try any bow they've got. Andy is in a different place. So I would highly recommend you go into a place like Average Jack, or, around us. We've got some bow shops we like, and just try them, because you're going to figure out what feels good to you pretty quickly, and what's important to you. Weight is important to a guy like me, and I don't want the bow to feel like it's taking up all kinds of space in my life. So the Assassin was perfect for a guy like me, and in the Era, checked most of those boxes as well. The Era is not a whole lot bigger than my Assassin. I sat them right next to each other on the ground. And, the Era is a little bit taller because it's got big ass cams compared to the small cams that the Assassin has. And it's not a whole lot heavier. I was going to weigh them and I never got around to it. It would be an apples to apples comparison. I don't remember if I ever told you this, but when I got the Era, I took the sight off of my Assassin. It went on the Era, got the Era totally set up, and then I started freaking out that my Assassin was gone from my life. So I went out and bought the exact same sight, which was a custom-made black gold, and put it back on my Assassin. So I've got a brand new sight on an old bow and a old sight on a new bow, and I set it totally up and got it sighted in. So I've got basically a backup ready to go. And so I could weigh both of them and see how much heavier that Era really is. But in my hand, it doesn't feel much heavier than my assassin did. So when I walked into a shop, there was two things I wanted. I wanted the same axle to axle. I didn't want a tall bow. I'm not shooting a damn 34. Like Andy's is a 34-inch axle to axle.
Hmm.
That thing's as tall as I am. I'm not doing it. And I wanted it to not be heavy. Those were the two things I was looking at. I didn't care if it was Elite, Matthews, Hoyt. I originally was looking at the Hoyt carbon bow. I don't remember the RX-7 maybe at the time. And I shot and this is nothing. I'm not saying anything about Hoyt. I shot the Hoyt and the Era, and I liked the Era better when I shot them. Now, you could shoot the two, and it could be a different story. So that's what I would recommend is what works for you. Because, Nate, tell me what you look for. Like two things. You walk into your own shop and say, hey, Mr. Nate, there's two things I'm looking for in my new bow. What are most important for you?
So the two things you mentioned, I couldn't care about less.
That's my point.
And that's
Yeah.
the thing, right? I could not care less about how long the bow is. Partially, that's due to just my natural size. I'm huge. I'm 6'4".
Right.
So most of the time, I need a long bow anyway to actually get to the drawing. But that Era does go to a 31-inch draw, which is my draw length, right? And I shot
Mm-hmm.
it. It was a great shoot bow. I have zero complaints. I would hunt with one if I purchased it.
Right.
But for me, the number one thing is the grip of the bow. If the grip of the bow and I don't just immediately have this Cinderella moment, I don't care at all, because the grip for me, as somebody who shoots 12 months out of the year, I compete 3D indoor. I'm going to Lancaster, the IBO Triple Crown. I'm be holding that bow 12 months out of the year. And so if that grip and I aren't repeatable and feel exactly the way I want it to feel, I'm not interested in the bow. Everything else can be perfect about the bow. But if that grip and I do not get along, then it doesn't matter to me. And then the second thing for me is the ability to have adjustments without needing extra parts. So, Hoyt has a rotating module, Elite has a rotating module, PSE and Bear, they all have rotating modules. A lot of them have adjustable let off to them. That's huge for me. That's something really, because just because I say I'm a 31-inch draw, maybe this bow feels better at 30 and 3/4, and this one feels better at 31 and a half. The ability to be able to change that on the fly, whether I'm at my house or in the shop, not need extra parts or buying extra things, that's a big deal for me. And I'm a little bit different. A lot of guys like having a let off on a bow that's max let off, 85, 90%. They want to pull that thing back and feel like they're holding nothing. I'm the exact opposite. I like the bow that I'm shooting in the Lancaster tournament to have low let off, and the bow that I'm hunting with to have low let off, because I'm shooting that bow year round. I don't like having a drastic change between the two. So
Yeah.
I'd rather shoot a hunting bow at 70% than 90%, which sounds crazy. You're like, I want, when you're holding it back, you don't feel like it's going to try to come forward on you. I'd much rather be right back in there, right in the back wall, and enjoy shooting that bow 12 months out of the year. So yeah, the two things for me are grip and the ability to tweak things without extra parts and pieces and do it easily. If a bow doesn't have those two things, as someone who's been shooting a bow for 21 years now, I have zero interest in it whatsoever.
And that's my point exactly. Like those could not have been four different things. Four
Correct.
more different things that we just talked about. The two things I look for and the two things that you look for. And I'm the same way. Like the way I shoot, we'll get into this in a minute, but I shoot still a wrist release, trigger
Mhm.
finger is what I call it.
You
A
don't have to
trigger
say
release.
still, like it's a bad thing.
Well, I'm telling you, I've heard it from
No,
everybody. You haven't
no.
started using a thumb release or a back
Tell
tension?
them to take a corn
No.
cob and shove it in
Oh,
their ear.
I
That
do. Don't
doesn't
worry.
matter.
Tell
Oh
McKissick.
man.
But I like to, when I draw back, and for the people on YouTube, they can kind of see what I'm meaning. When I draw back, I envision like my shoulder blades, my shoulder muscles touching each other. And that's kind of like that feeling I like to have. And when you have enough let off on the bow, that obviously you're not like shaking after 5 seconds, but you can still, like, if you get weak, you're going to fly forward and
Yeah.
you're going to look like an idiot. I like to know that because that's part of my shooting process is, hey, keep the muscles tight, flexed so that you're pulling through your shot or pulling through your shot. And so, yeah, I'm the same way. I really, honestly, I couldn't tell you though what my let off on my Era is. I have no
Right.
freaking clue. I don't, it's enough that I know I can't just, be lazy. But I don't really care. I shot the bow. It felt great and I moved on. Right. So, we both happen to shoot elites. It sounds like,
Yeah.
I'm at the Era, but, and to your point on the grip, my brother-in-law, Russell, he's a tinkerer like you. He'll mess with stuff, and he got a brand new bow. It's been probably 5 years ago now. When I bought his Assassin, he bought this bow, and this was a Vertek Rain 6 or 7, one of the two. And him and that bow never got along. Not one time after that marriage. He tried buying that bow back from me, and I'm like, F you, man. I'm keeping this thing. I love it. But, and you know what 99% of his problems with that bow were? The grip. He could
Has to be
not
the
get
grip.
happy.
Yeah.
He kept, I mean, he bought all this different tape. He put a new grip on it, trying to like just figure out what him and this bow didn't like about each other. And he struggled through, I don't know, 1 or 2 seasons with it, and was just like, I can't do this. And the next bow he got was a VXR from Matthews, and he's still shooting that bow. But it's almost like that marriage that was doomed. The guy said I
Hmm.
don't or something at the at the altar, and probably should have just walked away from there. But so yeah, I can understand the whole grip thing. I've never really noticed grip that much. Like, they all feel about the same to me. I don't, it doesn't bother me, I guess,
Cool.
right? Like, one
That
grip is,
hurts.
yeah, like
And
they
so,
don't really hurt
but
me.
that's the thing. When a guy buys a bow from my store, I'll be like, "So how does the grip feel?" And it'd be like a rubber overmolded grip. He's like, "Feels good." Then I'll
Well, I never
hand him a
shot
really
a rubber
thin.
grip, so I guess I would notice that
Well,
probably
like,
for
the
sure.
Hoyts, the
Yeah.
PSCs, the Bears, the Matthews, they all have a rubber overmolded grip in some way,
Yep.
shape, or form. And I'll hand that to him, and they'll be like, okay. And then I'll hand him a flat back off the riser grip, and they're like, "Yeah, it feels the same." And I'm like, "They're not the same. They're
Yeah.
nowhere near the same. Don't tell me it's." But he is not wired in that moment to. He doesn't care. They feel the
Yeah.
same. So he's
Yeah.
looking at how's the vibration in the handle, how does it feel, how's the draw cycle, whatever it could be for that person. And the most important thing for me is that I don't care. Again, if you walked into my store and like, I want light and short, perfect. We got light and short. I want, or I don't know what I want or whatever. I want you to find the things that make you enjoy a bow or don't enjoy a bow, because then it's easier to eliminate options. Because if you can kind of find what you're thinking, and that might evolve over time. I'm sure when I was in my youth, I didn't care about grip at all. I just want to draw a cycle or this thing or
Yeah.
whatever. And sure, it might evolve over time, but eventually you kind of figure out what makes you and a bow tick, or a different type of bow style tick, and just get along together. And then once you figure that out, that's when you can really go from kind of backyard accuracy, I like to call it, into that next level. And that's huge when you're able to make that step.
Yeah. And I guess when I said I don't pay attention to grip, I might have been wrong, because as you started talking, I was like, well, okay, no, I don't really like a fat grip. So I'm not right. I do start thinking about that. And, the Assassin it's a skinny grip,
Hmm.
and it's, I guess, slick, as you would call it. It's not rubber. And all I'm looking for is I want to feel it there, and I want to be able to touch the fingertips, like, and be able to know where they're at. And that's it.
Hmm.
And the Bowtech Assassin had it. I mean, and I shot that bow for a decade. So I didn't look at grip after that. And the
Yeah.
Era is the same, not the exact same grip, but it's skinny.
Hmm.
I can almost guarantee you, if a bow had a fatter grip, I wouldn't like it,
Yep.
because I got smaller hands, or not long fingers. So if I'm sitting there, doing weird things to try to get that grip to work for me, I wouldn't like it. So, I'm guessing some other people like that, more of like a pistol type of grip that's rubber.
Hmm.
I'm
Hmm.
not sure how I would feel about it. I honestly don't feel like I've really ever shot a bow that had that I remember. And if I did, I didn't like it. And that might have been subconsciously part of the reason I didn't.
Yeah.
But honestly, I don't remember what that RX-7 had. I shot the Elite. Micah's got what's the aluminum version of the Era when it came out?
Would have been the Omnia, probably.
That's what Micah shoots. And I like that bow good enough when I shot it, but I was like, nah, I like this Era better. It's lighter,
Hmm.
whatever else. What else did I shoot? I shot two Bowtechs. One was a 34-inch draw, or 34 axle.
Yeah, probably the
And
SS34. Yeah.
that's what Andy shoots now. And it was fine, but I was like, dude, the first time I knocked this cam against a log in Colorado, because it's long, I'm going to curse the person I bought this from. I promise
Hmm.
you I will. Even though it's probably not a whole lot bigger, but to me, it was, it's like carrying a freaking piano.
Hmm.
So, the second I picked that bow up, I probably was like, I'm not going to like this. And that's not going to work well, right? And I don't remember what else I shot. I shot probably 6, 7 different bows that day. And it ended up being between the Era, and it was a bow that I wasn't even thinking about that day. I wish Micah was here with us because he would remember. I feel like it was a bear. Um, no, it was a Bowtech. And I don't remember the name. If you said the name, I'd probably remember, but it was a cheaper Bowtech, if that makes any
Oh,
sense.
okay. Like
It
the
wasn't,
Amplify or the Divergent.
it might have been the Divergent. It wasn't carbon. I know that.
Yeah, no, it would have been aluminum. Yeah.
And it took me, I would shoot that one 3 or 4 times, and I'd grab the arrow and I'd shoot it a little bit, and I'd shoot
Yeah.
that one a few,
About a
and
$700-800 bow, I think, somewhere in that
yeah, it
range.
wasn't it wasn't expensive. And I ended up just saying, you know what, I can't tell a difference, so I'm going to go with the one that's lighter. Um, and I did. So I haven't looked back. I haven't regretted it, but yeah. So I mean, you look at other things more than you do things other people look at. And I guess it's just why I like telling people, go to a shop, don't buy a bow online. I mean, you can buy a bow online, but it's just like, I don't know. I don't want to. Carvana is a big thing, right? People buy cars online all the time.
Hmm. Hmm.
I'm not ever going to do that. I want to go
Well, as
look.
I tell people, when they buy a bow online, a lot of people don't know, and this happens weekly in my store. They'll buy a bow off of somebody online, Facebook Marketplace or whatever. They'll bring it to me. Hey, I need this bow. I need the draw length set to me. And I'm like, well, this bow is module specific. Or, hey, this bow has the short draw module rotating on it. You need the long draw. Or even this bow doesn't even fit you. You're my size, and this bow only goes out to 30 inches, 29 and a half inches. I
Right.
don't know what to tell you. And so sure, you might be looking, and we do carry used bows in our store. And sometimes, a guy wants to look for that price point and have something that fits him. But at the end of the day, a lot of the times you actually accidentally shoot yourself in the foot if you don't do enough research in advance. And in particular, if you're new to the
Right.
sport and you don't know enough to do the right research and kind of really calculate your draw length. How much poundage can you pull? I've had people walk in with a 60-pound bow that can't even pull back, and that's fine. That's not a knock on their manlyhood, but
Yeah.
unfortunately, they just blew. They thought they got a great deal, and they can't pull it back.
Yeah.
And so I see it a lot. And so sometimes just going into your local shop, and I do, and guys will call me and ask questions, send me emails, Average Jack Archery, and be like, "Hey, I'm looking at this used bow." And I'm like, "Well, where are you located?" They're like, "Oh, I'm in, Missouri, or I'm in Michigan." I'm like, "Well, you're not going to buy it from me, but." At least then I have a happier bow hunter if I'm like, actually, that bow's not even going to fit you, or it might not, or it's got a really tough draw cycle. Actually, that's an 80-pound bow. Have you ever shot a bow before? No. Well, okay. Well, now I just saved you
Pretty heavy.
spending money on stuff. Yeah. So, yeah, it's if you can get into your local shop to actually try it, it is super beneficial, particularly if the shop knows what they're doing, which is becoming harder and harder these days. But it's
It
still,
is.
there are
Yep.
good shops out there.
It is. And it sucks for a new person because, and I wasn't even talking about the Facebook buying online. I was more so talking like ordering a brand new bow online, and then
Yeah.
you're like,
Either
well, what do I do
way.
with it now?
Yeah. Either way.
I feel like a lot of folks, I mean, you probably see more than I ever would. If you're buying a bow online, hopefully you know a little bit about what you're looking for, right? Like if I were going to go buy a bow on Facebook Marketplace or eBay, it's only two places I can think about it. Um, I have an idea. Like, this is what I want. I want to go find another Bowtech Assassin. Let's just say, right? I already know everything I need to know about that bow, and
Mhm.
I'll go find what I want to find. Can't find it at Average Jack; those aren't made anymore, right? So I'm gonna go
Mhm.
find that bow. But for a new person, I 100% agree. Like, yeah, you might have to spend a little more at a on a brand new bow. Let's say it's a $700 Divergent over finding a 2-year-old bow on Facebook. Sure, but if you're a brand new archer, that's just a recipe for disaster unless you've got a lot of people that have educated you on what to look for, what to get. Because like you said, you buy you're a dude that's 5'7", you find a smoking deal on a 36 freaking inch axle, um, competition bow, cool.
Yeah.
You are, I don't know, maybe you're a guy my size and you love something like that, but I'd friggin' hate it. I'd get it and be like, holy hell, this thing is like a coffin. I could
Yeah.
get into this. It's so big.
Or even just brand loyalty from friends in the most well-meaning way possible. Guys be like, hey, I think I'm gonna do bow hunting this year. And they'll ask their buddies, what do you shoot? What do you shoot? What do you shoot? Well, I shoot Hoyt, I shoot Matthews. Okay. And they'll kind of take a poll and they'll see that let's say Matthews comes out on top, Elite comes out on top, whatever. They're gonna go buy one of those bows. And they have no knowledge of what this bow needed X number of years ago. They just know it's a Matthews. They just know it's an Elite versus what that bow needs today. So if you go, let's say, for example, you really like an Elite and you're like, all right, I found an Elite online, 2016, let's say, it's a great looking bow, smoking deal, you show up. And then you're like, I bought an Elite, my buddy's shooting Elite. It's great. Well, yeah, your buddy shoots the new Ethos. You just bought a Hunter and it needs new modules and a press to change them. So sure, you bought the brand your buddy said is a good brand, and he was not wrong, but you just bought the brand. You didn't actually buy the bow that he's shooting and the adjustment that he has. Now you need to go find parts that aren't made anymore. And it's the same thing. So it's all well and good, and it's all well meaning to ask your friends and to go on the forums and say, hey, what's a good brand or whatever. But you got to really narrow it down a lot further before you just kind of say, yeah, this is going to be what I'm going to start shooting.
And every brand's had their lemons, as I would call it, right? Like
Absolutely.
I feel like Vertek, that Rain 6, that Rain didn't do that great. That's the only one I saw was my brother-in-law's boat, that Rain 6 he had, and he hated it. So like,
Yeah.
I had this taste in my mouth, like, oh, I'm staying the freaking hell away from those. I'm sure Elites had them. Matthews, what was the one that I know, the ZX or the ZX7? Everybody loved that damn thing or what it was.
Oh, the Z7 series,
Yeah,
yeah, the old single cam stuff. But then they came out with the no cam in like 2016. They ran it for 1 year. And if a company only runs one type of bow for 1 year, you know it didn't go well.
right.
There was something about that didn't go well. But you don't know that. You just know
No,
Matthews. My buddy
yeah.
said buy a Matthews. I find a no cam on eBay, $400, smoking deal. And you find out you hate it or you need parts or whatever it may be.
2 months later, you're spending another 400 on strings and new cams and
Yeah.
whatever else, when you could have just bought an $800 brand new
Yeah.
bow from a shop. So yeah, no, I get that, but I mean, everybody has their process. Some people are like, I don't buy brand new things, and I get that. I don't buy brand new cars. So but
No, never.
when I get a bow, from now on, after I got lucky and I had people in my life that put me in the right direction. And so Russell educated me on what a bow is, and luckily he was close to the same draw as me, so I got to try that bow out. First time I ever shot a bow, I took off half the skin on my forearm, and I learned my lesson, like how to hold a bow and and that sort of stuff. But he taught me those things when I was 19, 20 years old, just getting into archery. So I had the right people, but not everybody does. Some people are like, listen, I'm going to go hunt, and I don't know anybody in my family that wants to do it, and none of my friends do it, but I have a calling in my heart to go do this. So that's some great stuff to look at. Okay, let's move on. Let's talk about releases first, because now you've got me wondering. The archery guy, we just talked about it a few minutes ago. Thumb releases are super popular, and the back tension stuff is super popular. I have shot a thumb release before, not regularly. I've tried it, and it was fine. I mean, okay, this is cool. But after I found the right wrist or the trigger release, which is what I call it, the right trigger release that I was looking for, I don't know that I'll ever move on from that release. Now they changed it a little bit, and I need to go get one bought so I can have a backup immediately, so they don't go and change it again, and now it's just totally different. But so I shoot a true ball short and sweeter. I looked for years. I mean, I bet I bought 6 or 7 different releases one year, trying to figure out what was right. And all it took was going to an archery shop, and a really smart man helped me out with some stuff. And all the trigger releases that I had at the time were straight out. So if this were my finger, the trigger was straight out. And he's like, you got short fingers. He goes, let me put you into this one. And it has a swept back trigger. He goes, now put your finger in there. And it was just like butter, just perfect.
Hmm.
And so I pull back on that and my finger just drops over it. And then I'm pulling through and letting my back and, everything else do the work. And I love that release. So I'm not going to change. I'm kind of that guy. I find something, I don't change. But what do you shoot?
So I shoot mostly handheld stuff, and that is predominantly coming from my tournament side. I spend way too much time with a
Yep.
bow. Although up until, gosh, probably 3 years ago, I shot a wrist strap or a trigger release, as you'd call it, exclusively for hunting. I would shoot a thumb release all summer and a hinge release during spot season and then I would switch over to the old reliable, I shot a hot shot impetus for years, which is an open hook style release, has a moderately swept back trigger, but I definitely have, I have bigger hands to be able to get around
You
it.
don't have to worry
But
about it.
what you're
Yep.
describing with the trigger release is like 95% of people's problems with the trigger release is that when it's set up, that trigger's too far forward.
Yeah, they're
It's way
reaching.
too, they're
Yep.
reaching for it. They're getting just the tip of the finger. And for those watching on video, you got to get in here. You want to be in between the first two creases of your index finger, somewhere in there. And that gets such a better release on an index style release, a trigger style release, than anything else. If you sit there and constantly play with the finger, or you got to stretch your hand out like a spider to try to get it, you got to do some weird things. It's too long. The actual stem of the release is too long. Shorten that stem up or move to one that has a swept back trigger. Hot Shot Images is a great one. The True Ball Beast is a great one. The one they do with collaboration with think of the Chicken Wing or the Fang, I think is another one. Those are excellent, super swept back triggers, and they are definitely worth looking into. Now, you're definitely going to have a higher price point to get to those. Like the True Ball Short and Sweep is not a $50 release,
No,
right?
I think
But
it's 100-ish, I think
I was going
last
to
time
say
I
it's
bought
around
that.
the 100. Most of
Yeah.
the really good index style releases are going to be pushing 90 to 120 that in today's market. That's where they're around. The Impetus is around a $90 release,
Yeah.
$100 release, and the True Ball is around that 110, 120 is, as well. So that style release, if you do it right, is so much more reliable than if you just kind of buy the cheapest thing you find on the wall where that trigger is really far forward. It might have a curve to it, but it's not actually swept back. So you really got
Right.
to shorten up the length of the release, which a lot of guys don't like. A lot of guys don't like that wrist strap. They got to like really get their hand around it and hook it on. It's too short. But then as soon as you put tension on it and you've drawn the bow
Perfect.
back, now the trigger's clear out here, you're going to wish it was short because then you can get your finger around it. But no, I predominantly stick to hot shot releases. I've been shooting a Scott this summer, the Scott Apex, which is the thumb barrel release. Really like open hook style releases. Really, really like open hook style releases. And that people sometimes think, oh, shoot an open hook, it's gonna slip off the D loop. I've never had such an issue. I always have shot some sort of open hook thumb release, and that's just the way I love to do it. The hot shot hookup, then now the Scott Apex as well. Those are just two releases that I constantly go back to, and I've shot a lot of great scores and a lot of good deer with them.
Once again, I think it's your experience. Like I developed bad habits with cheaper releases for a
Hmm.
while. And think about it. If you're on that trigger, once again, for people that are watching, they can see what I'm doing. If you're on that trigger and you just have the very tip of your finger, well, you're also not only are you reaching, you're also pushing down
Down,
to
not
try to
straight
get it
back.
back.
That
So
is
you're going
correct.
down and back. So you're pulling you're doing a lot of things you shouldn't be doing. Now you've gotten used to them and you've probably made adjustments that you don't even know you're making so that you hit the target the right way, but you're still not shooting correctly, right? So once I figured that out, it was a game changer for me. So I stopped looking, right? I don't need to look any further. Now, like other people have tinkered. Our buddy Pat tinkers a lot with stuff,
Hmm.
and he's shooting well, I think it's a thumb release now. But Andy, now I don't remember what Andy's doing now. I'll have to see next time we shoot together. But he moved to a thumb release, and he liked it. And then he had a deer in front of him. The first season that he shot with it, and we shot all summer. He felt great. He shot well, and he has this beautiful buck in front of him. Now, um, the story did not go well for this buck, but luckily that buck did live. And when he got all jacked up, he buried he buried that release in his hand, and when he went to shoot, nothing happened. And he was sitting there like, "What's going on? What's going on?" And I was sitting here, messing with my thumb on video, and he had that release so buried in his palm that he couldn't get the thing to shoot. And when he did shoot, he rushed and he punched it, and he hit that deer square in the shoulder, and that deer lived. He only got about 3 inches of penetration on that deer, and that deer didn't die. And so, what do you think he did afterwards?
Went right
He
back.
went right back away from a thumb release. When in reality it was just a matter of he got too worked up and got too jacked up and didn't put the release where he normally would put it. And
Hmm.
I don't know a whole lot about thumb releases. I've shot one like 3 times total, like I told you.
Yeah.
So, um,
But putting your
I get
setup
it.
under pressure, right?
Yeah,
Putting your
yeah,
setup under pressure. That is, and this is where I bark about this on every single time someone asks me, or if I'm on a podcast, is shooting in the backyard is great. It's 90 degrees outside, it's July, it's August, September, you're feeling good, everything. And then he's standing in front of you at 20 yards and you can't stop shaking. Your brain totally goes black. And even if you shot it for months, if you've never been in a high pressure situation, you cannot replicate that, whether that's in a tournament, that's you got a deer in front of you. And so the more you're able to shoot your bow with whatever release style you're going to use, whatever arrow or bow system you're going to use, shooting it under pressure year round
yeah,
in tournaments, leagues, that people think, oh, shooting because everybody barks about how the 3D rings are in the wrong place to kill a deer, right? They're kind of middle lung, right? They're not that lower third that we all like to aim for, right?
hmm,
But when you're told you need to hit that or you're gonna lose, every single man on this planet is gonna nut up and they're gonna try to hit that ring, right? So when you put yourself under that kind of pressure, it's not about hitting the ring, it's about hitting that spot. And then when that deer walks, so you do 3 or 4 3D shoots through the summer. Maybe you shot spots in the winter at your local shop.
yep,
That deer steps out in front of you, 20 yards, 30 yards. You're like, that's the spot I need to hit. And all of a sudden, all of your competitive skills come in to play that you've honed. You've spent a couple months, you spent a year honing them. And all of a sudden, you're there, the pin's exactly where you need it to go, not on a scoring ring, but right there in that lower 1/3. And you start executing, all of a sudden the arrow's gone. It 10 rings him. He runs off and falls in sight. And you're like, what just happened? Well, you
yeah,
have put yourself in pressure situations. Like, and a lot of people talk about when I don't get buck fever anymore, I'll give up hunting. I don't get buck fever anymore until after the arrow goes off. After the arrow goes off, then everything I just fall apart. I got videos on my channel of myself shaking after I shoot something because then the adrenaline dump happens. But in that initial moment, because I've spent so many times in high pressure shooting situations, it's not I'm not perfect, but it's a heck of a lot calmer than if I never practiced something like that before. Whether you shoot a thumb
yeah.
barrel, a wrist strap, or a hinge or whatever, those are invaluable moments that you could spend shooting your bow year round that prep you for that 10-second interaction with a deer in the woods.
I attribute 3D shooting to why I don't get buck fever anymore.
Hmm.
When we started really getting into 3D, now we don't take it seriously from the standpoint like we don't turn our cards in half the time.
Hmm.
We keep score for ourselves. Like there's always competition between us, and we'll talk shit to each other like while I'm shooting, and Andy will say something, try to get me off my game. Like I thoroughly believe that has helped us. I can't speak for everybody as far as buck fever, but for me, I go through a checklist when I start, when it's okay, there's a deer there I'd like to shoot. All right, what we got to do? Well, we were waiting for him to get in here. He's 26 yards, whatever we're doing. What's your next step? Well, okay, grab your D loop. All right, pull back, make sure we're good. Hey, your top button on your top pin right now. He's at 26, so use your top or whatever. And I'm just talking myself through the target that's in front of me.
Hmm.
And then, like you said, as soon as the arrow's gone, I mean, I damn near pissed my pants. Like you just can't control yourself. The amount of adrenaline that runs through you, for me, has never been matched. No sport I've ever played, none of it.
Hmm.
It's crazy. But I attribute it. Now I don't know that for a fact, but I attribute it to 3D shooting. It's a way to put yourself in different situations, different views of field, different angles. You can test, is my third axis off because we're shooting downhill now? Like all
Hmm.
these things that you have to do that help. And then when I'm shooting at home, this is a testament to Russell actually. When I first started elk hunting out west, I would go over to his house and we'd shoot for a while, and then he'd be like, "All right, we're gonna run 2 laps around the house, and then we're gonna come back and we're gonna pick our bow up, and we got 10 seconds to shoot."
Hmm.
And it forces you to do certain things, or he'd make me sit down and shoot, or I'd
Hmm.
have to get on one knee and shoot because when we're in Colorado, that might be what you have to do. You're not going to be standing perfectly, at the target wide open in front of you. There's going to be things you got to
Hmm.
deal with. So, but that's the only thing you can really do at home. You can't, I mean, some people might be able to make their own 3D course, but you go to 6 different 3D courses throughout, mid Missouri or wherever you're at, and they're all going to be different. They're all going to have different targets. There's going to be things that piss you off. You're going to lose arrows, but you're going to learn from it.
It's
And
the
I
mental
am a
game.
huge proponent of going to 3D stuff, and I would love to go to something like TAC, that sort of stuff, and just experience, even it on a crazier scale. But no, I 100% agree with you. And like I said, to go back to the releases, I'm not talking shit on thumb releases or back tension. I know those guys talk shit on me and my trigger release, but once again, I could really care less. I'm still, I guess that old cranky dog that likes the trigger release, and I also like it on my wrist. Like I don't have to worry about where it's at. It's right
Hmm.
here. I feel like the first time I would go hunting with a thumb release, I'd be like, shit, I left it in the truck
Hmm.
or whatever. Like
Hmm.
that release is always on me. I know where it's at. I've gotten used to the feeling. I play with it in the tree the entire time. I'll sit there and,
It's the
rub
archery
on the,
fidget spinner.
yeah, it is. I'll sit there and like hook the hook and then click it off and hook the hook and then click
Hmm.
it off. Probably bad for it, but I do that a lot. And so, yeah, I just gotten used to it, but that's what I use. What about sights? What do you got for a sight on your personal setup right now?
Before I get to sites to it, for anybody that gives you crap or anybody that gets and listen and gets crap, tell them about shooting a wrist release. They're shooting the old wrist rocket. Tell them, go look at pictures of professional archer Michael Braden. Michael Braden shot a wrist release for as long as I've seen Michael Braden shoot, and that dude has won everything. And he
Yeah.
does the exact same. I mean, with a wrist release. Tim Gillingham, same thing, wrist
Yep.
release, right? Won so many medals, it's not even funny. So it's not saying you can't be accurate, cannot be high end. So shove that in everybody's face next time. Anybody listening, if they give you
Also,
crap shooting a wrist release.
and I also have I have no desire to be known as the best archer that ever lived.
But you
I could really,
should.
I
You
mean,
should.
I could give a shit if, and this is just, I want to be the best archer, but I could really give a shit if some guy listening to me thinks that I'm a good shot. I
Hmm.
know I'm a good shot. I don't need you to think I'm a good shot. Let's go shoot and prove it, but
Yeah.
I don't, I know I'm not going to outshoot probably some of these dudes that do it year round that are Tim Dillingham is a perfect example. I'm not
Right,
outshooting
right.
him, and I'm not gonna outshoot him anytime soon, probably. But hey, it's nice to know there are some guys out there still representing the wrist release
Oh
world.
yeah, hard. They're doing it. They're doing it well. Yeah, so moving on to sites. So, sites are just as specific as releases are. But one thing that I've seen in my shop, seen a big shift on is a lot of guys are liking to shoot a slider type of sight. But to specifically go to that is shooting a multi-pin slider sight. So you still have 3 pins either in a horizontal, yeah, or in a vertical. And I myself shoot a vertical one. I have a 2-pin CB Trek Pro, and the slider sights have become really, really popular because you're able to shoot long distance. TAC has
Mhm.
exploded over the past couple of years. You're shooting bison targets like 110 yards, yippee skippy. I don't really do that. However, the ability to not have 7 pins in your sight housing to be able to
Yeah,
shoot 50, 60, 70 yards, because it's true, when you do practice at longer distance, that 20-yard shot looks like nothing, right? I vividly remember as a kid looking at a target 40 yards away and thinking, I'm never hitting the target ever in my entire
it's a
lifetime.
long
And
ways
now
away.
and yeah, it's a mile. And now I'm shooting a 45-yard class and I'm hitting rings the size of a silver dollar. So, but the ability to have a slider sight that's a 3 pin, either the vertical or the horizontal, allows you then when you're done doing all those shoots throughout the summer, you're done shooting 3D, you're done shooting at 80 yards at your backyard or whatever, if you have that opportunity, you then can wind it up to 20 yards, lock it in place, And then you're ready 20, 30, 40, like you're usually used to seeing. A lot of guys still shoot fixed pins. I don't care what anybody says. You might see sliders all over the place. The vast majority of archers coming into my shop are shooting fixed pin sights.
Mhm.
And so 3 pin, 4 pin, 5 pin horizontal sights. And so it's the same thing they've always seen, but now they can, when they want to, stretch out the distance if they have to past 40 yards with a very effective aiming spot. 52 yards, dial that wheel in, 52 yards of that pin. So,
Yep.
and everybody's starting to make them. CBE, Redline, Trophy Ridge, Spot Hog, HHA, they're all making some sort of multi-pin slider. And you can get a good one for like $110. Like Redline's RL2 is like 120, I think. CBs are not wildly expensive. When you start getting up like your spot hogs and your true balls and that type of stuff, that starts really adding up the dollar value. But that has become very popular in my store, and I see it across the industry, is that style of sight.
Well, it's I mean, I moved to that a few years ago. Um, I've got a bone to pick with Trophy Ridge, which I'll tell you about at some point. Not that it's really a bone to pick, but they have a site that I want to try so bad, but there's one thing they're not doing that I can't use it. But so I told you I went with the black gold at the time, and what I liked about SNS Archery, I'm pretty sure is who did it. They had a custom order shop, and so I'm a guy who number one likes 10 pins, 10 pin size or
Mm,
0.10. I like the smaller pins, and my eyes don't love red. They
hmm
like green. So I ordered a 3 pin horizontal slider, and all 3 pins are green. And it works really good for me. I went from a Trophy Ridge React Pro in the 5 pin horizontal.
hmm
And I loved that sight at the time, but I noticed I would get a lot of starbursting with that 19.19 size pin. And so when I found the 0.10 size pin, I loved it. And then I ordered that. And then, like I said, I ordered the exact same sight for my
hmm
backup, which is an expensive amount of money to spend on something that's not being used. But, to me, they're well worth it. They're good sites. They're not as easy to sight in as maybe some other ones.
hmm
Micah just recently went to a red line. He had a 3 pin slider and left it to go back to a single pin.
hmm
So everybody's a little bit different. Andy, he's got a spot hog of some sort. I don't remember exactly. I think it's a 2 pin slider. But me, I like three. I like 20, 30, 40. Some people do 30, 40, 50 because 20's simple, right? But
hmm
I've always been a 20 guy, 20, 30, 40, and then I move on from there. Um, and I love it. Trophy Ridge has the React Pro and a 3 pin, but they're
hmm
19 pin size. And I, for the life of me, cannot figure out why they will not produce it in 10 pin size. And until they do, I don't get to try it because they get so big on the target for me that it's difficult to even know what I'm shooting at after a while. So um I hope someday they do that. And I'm sure there's a reason behind them doing that, but that React technology, I guess you want to call it,
hmm
I had the React pin and the 5 pin and it freaking worked, man.
It
Like
works. It's
it worked.
crazy.
And so
It's
I'm like,
crazy.
I would
Yes.
buy that 3 pin slider in 2 minutes with the ease of setup that it has over like my black gold. It takes me a long time to set it up. Now I get very specific. I get very picky, so that's on me. But man, it would be so freaking awesome if they would just produce it in the 10 pin size. I don't
For
get
like
it.
20 bucks in fiber, you can replace them yourself.
I'm sure I could, but then I got to do stuff and I'm just going to keep the black gold at that point. So, um, yeah, I shoot a black gold 3 pin slider. Sounds like a lot of people are kind of moving that direction. Russell still shoots a 5 pin fixed. Um, and like I said, he's the only one that I know out of my friend group that still does something like that. But you know
hmm
what? He got used to it and then he went away from it, didn't love it, and so he went right back to
hmm
it. And it's a 5 pin fixed. I'm pretty sure it's a Trophy Ridge React.
Yeah.
And I can't blame him for it. I wish I could use it still, but the amount of starburst I see is just a little much. And that
Yeah.
React Pro, I believe the bottom pin is red, which is the worst one for me to see that's red because it's the
Yeah.
usually the furthest away. So it's even bigger, and so it just doesn't work for a guy like me. But yeah, that's I think for anybody that's getting a new bow, your release is obviously important, but you should really pay attention to the sights and what you like looking at.
Hmm.
Don't just settle on oh, well, okay, this bow that I'm shooting happens to have a CBE whatever on it. And
Hmm.
so I shoot it and the bow felt good. Oh, just put that sight on it. No, I would try out what you like, because a sight can really make an archer struggle if it just isn't working for them. The same as the bow itself, honestly.
Oh yeah. And there's way more sight options than there are bow options. And as I tell people, it's not necessarily even a brand specific issue as much as it is just the style of sight. Everybody's competing at the same
Yeah.
price points with the same things. 3-pin fixed, 5-pin sliders, blah, blah, blah. And so it really comes down to how does the actual sight function on the bow? Is the tape on the inside, tape on the outside? Is it angled back towards you? Is it flat? Does it work off of a wheel, or is it like a fishing reel type 2 thing? Is the locking nut on the inside or the outside? I so like the HHA stuff. I don't like having a wheel tape. I like being able to see all my numbers at once with a sliders type sight. So I don't like having that wheel on there. So I'm not a big HHA guy. So, but there's lots of companies that do them both directions. And so
Yep.
kind of just like the bow, finding what you're going to stare at. If you're going to stare at it, what you're going to stare at every single shot, find something you want to stare at every single shot that you're like, yeah, I'm going to keep coming back to this. This is good. This works for me.
Yep. That's exactly right. Okay, and then finally the last two things, and then we'll move on to our second topic. But I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you what arrows you're shooting. So we'll start with arrows, and then we'll go with the thing that's on the tip of those arrows in a second.
I'm very boring. I shoot normal arrows. Gold tip XT Hunters, Sirius
Mhm.
Supernova 2.0s. This year I'm shooting gold tip Kinetic Chaos. The only reason I'm doing that is because why not? It's, most of my arrows live, I'm a 31-inch draw, 300 spine, 125 grain point. I live between 450 and 500 naturally. I don't do anything, nothing special. I don't
I
buy
would
extra inserts, don't buy expensive broadheads.
I would love to flip you
Um,
off right now, but I'm going to try to keep it
yeah.
PG.
Yeah, let's try to get. Yeah, I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah.
So I don't
It's
get
it's
off in
that
the
long
weeds a
arrow.
whole
It gives you
lot.
that weight, you know. I mean,
Yeah, it's a long
I
arrow. Most of them are 9 to 10 GPI. So,
yep.
like I said, with the standard insert and 125 grain point, which I've shot 125 grain point for almost 20 years now. Yeah, I live between 450 and 500 with lighted knock. And then, we can go into the broadhead side. I shoot a little bouquet. I really like Grim Reaper mechanicals. I really like Magnus fixed blades. And so I kind of shoot both. I killed 2 deer with a Grim Reaper mini mag last year, killed my
Hmm.
buck in Indiana with a Magnus Black Hornet. Those are two of the brands I really gravitate towards, and they're big sellers for me in my shop. It's hard to beat an American made product. Been
Yep.
around for a very long time. And when it comes to mechanicals, if you keep them smaller cutting, you don't need a 3-inch cutting mechanical to kill anything, especially a whitetail. So like the mini mag's inch and a quarter by inch and a quarter, you can shoot the razor cut, which is inch and 3/8, and that works for almost everybody at any draw length and draw weight that's normal. And not 40 pounds, 24 inches, but a guy shooting 50 to 70 pounds, you're drawing 27 to 31 inches normal arrow weight, you can put an inch and a half and smaller mechanical through a whitetail, no problem.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I take great pride in my shop shooting the things that my customers are going to buy. It'd be really weird if I shot some direct to consumer broadhead, single bevel, 200 grain nonsense, and my
Yep.
customers were buying 100 grain Magnus off the wall. That doesn't look right to me. So all the
Right.
deer that I shoot, if they have applicable antlers to them, I bring the racks or the mounts into the store. And if a guy's like, well, what do you think about this broadhead? Well, actually, I used that broadhead and I killed that deer. And oh, you want this broadhead? Oh, I actually killed that deer with it. So the proof is literally right there in front of them. And that is something that has really worked for me in my store, having actual proof in the pudding, if you will.
Yeah. I'm boring when it comes to the arrow. I've shot the exact same arrow for the last, I don't know, let's just say decade. It's the first
Yeah.
arrow I started shooting, Black Eagle Rampages. Uh, they do good, and so I don't change. I wish I could say like, oh, I've tried gold tip and all these ones. I
Yeah,
haven't.
no.
I
I've pretty much
haven't.
stuck to gold tip my entire
Yeah.
life. I mean, really.
I want
I did
to.
some with Sirius, but again, it's nothing crazy. They're just if you find something that works, there is no point in changing it.
Yeah.
None.
The only thing I wish I
None.
did, I wish I was a little heavier. Now I am shooting a 100 grain arrow or broad tip or yeah, broadhead, excuse me. So I could bump up to that 125 and give myself a little heavier because I am short. So
Hmm.
I've got a shorter arrow. So like I'm sitting right around 420 grains.
Oh, still perfect. That's
Yeah, still
beautiful.
fine. And but I'm not as fast as a guy like you either. Like I know my arrow is shooting around 265 feet per second, somewhere in there. I mean, I wish I was faster, but I can't get much faster than I am at the moment. And if I
Yeah.
go to 500 grains, I'm gonna get even slower.
Hmm.
Um, so, but my broadhead setup this year is going to change because I'm not going to Colorado with the guys, so I'm not hunting elk this year. It's
Mm.
just whitetail, and I love. Now, this is a direct to consumer broadhead, so I don't even know if you've played with them yet, but I love the Severs.
Everybody loves
Um,
the Severs.
they are awesome, and they have messed deer up. So we shoot those, and I'm gonna probably keep shooting those. But I was gonna change my fixed blade that was going to go to Colorado because the severs weren't going to be shot at an elk.
Right.
I was going to shoot a fixed blade at an elk. So I have had iron wills for several years, and I honestly I'm just kind of tired of the tuning that I do
Mm.
with them. So for instance, I'll keep it short and sweet, but each iron will broadhead that I have, and I have six of them, I would have to marry that broadhead to a specific
To an
arrow.
arrow. Yep.
Yeah. And so if I was practicing with that broadhead and something happened to that arrow, I had to start all over or had to retire that one and move into the and I don't know, it's sort of a pain in the ass, you
Hmm.
know? And so I mean, they're good quality broadheads that cut and I have nothing against them. It's just I got tired of that. So I was going to try a different fixed blade this year and I was gonna try out the Rec
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember the name of it. It's their the only fixed blade one they have. They have a
Yeah.
fixed
Out of
blade and they have
Michigan. Yeah.
and they have a what do you call it?
Mechanical
Mechanical.
there.
That's it. They have one of each. I think they have two mechanicals now. But I was gonna try it, but honestly, I'm just hunting whitetail this year. So the severs are going to go in my quiver and I'm gonna move on with my life, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about that. But yeah, I think, and I don't know why I was going to pick that Rec. I think it's just because I saw them at ATA and I liked
Hmm.
them. They're American made,
Good company.
and the folks seem nice. Vantage Point has some cool stuff that I looked at out there. Did you say you were shooting a Magnus?
Shooting a Magnus. Been doing it for
So
years.
Pat and you would be best friends. Pat loves Magnus. Magnus Stinger, I think, is what he
Hmm.
likes. And so yeah, like everybody likes something different, but I think it's cool to see, what an archery shop owner shoots personally. It's just
Yeah.
interesting, right?
Yeah. Because
So
we all do something a little bit different. But yeah, those I like shooting multiple different things that you can get your hands on from my store, from Lancaster, from your local bow shop. You'll be hard pressed to not walk into a lot of bow shops and see Magnus, see Grim Reapers, see a lot of the heads that I carry. Slick Trick's another big one for me.
shot those
Um,
for years. Yep.
Yeah, so it's I like to be able to say, yep, I use this. It's a readily available product. It works every time. Go kill stuff.
Yep. Okay. So we're going to make a little pivot for people listening on YouTube. Nate is wearing the item that released today, the day you and I are recording, which is August 1st, which is Huntworth's new Vertek camo pattern. And me, Andy, and Micah have kept our freaking mouths shut for a good while, which has been difficult, right? And we finally get to talk about it. I
Hmm.
actually had a buddy, I had a listener who's kind of a buddy of ours reach out about the sale you guys were having a few months ago, whatever it was. And I'm like, dude, I can't say anything, but you might just wait for just a minute, just a couple weeks, just wait. He's like, what? I'm like, I can't say anything else. Just wait. And now he knows what he was waiting for. And he might go back and buy the same pattern he was wearing,
Hmm.
but
Yeah.
now he's got another option here. So we've known about it for a while, but the Vertec pattern is out. So what's it been like, releasing it? And we'll kind of talk about the backstory on how it happened, but what's it been like so far?
The feedback has been tremendous. Vertek was a pattern that we have spent years R&Ding and working on. You guys have been part of the process. A lot of our staffers have been part of the process, which has been awesome. Have the feedback to actually see it in action. It's been great. And it's really cool to be able to bring a pattern to market that complements we didn't revamp one of our current patterns, turn and disruption. This is totally different from the other two. It's unlike any pattern that I think a lot of other companies are making. And the amount of technicality that's gone into this pattern, it's not just we slapped a whole bunch of wood looking colors and some leaves on it and they just gave you a new pattern. We did not do that. And so, to bring this to market and to bring it to the whole Huntworth lineup, it's going on all of our existing clothing. So it's not a whole new line. It's all the tried and true garments that people know and love, the Durham pants and Elkins and Heat Boost lineup and everything. That's what Vertek is going on. So if have a piece in Tarn or have a piece in Instruction you like it and you're like, gosh, I love that pattern. Well, guess what? You're getting the same quality that you got out of your existing pieces to move in. Or if you're brand new to Huntworth, which, a lot of people have discovered Huntworth because of Vertek now, they're like, gosh, I'm gonna look into that. That looks a lot better than I thought it could. And so we're very excited to have brought it. It's been a long time coming, and it's finally out.
I remember the first meeting I had with the owners of Huntworth, right down here in our studio, and we didn't know what was coming, and they got it out, and we're like, oh, okay, and it wasn't exactly what it looks like now,
No, yeah,
because
lots of different iterations.
a lot of staffers, gave them feedback on, hey, okay, there's a lot of brown in this or whatever, we think it's too loud or whatever. And they heard that from all kinds of different staffers, pro staff or whatever you want to call it, that, gave them ideas. And it's really cool, from our standpoint to be like, dude, there is a camo pattern out now that we helped design somehow, whether they listened to our feedback or not. They asked, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
absolutely,
it's really cool to see like it out. And I've been a fan of disruption for as long as I can remember, and I like Tarnin. Tarnin is a close second. Andy likes Tarnin better, so everybody likes them too. But like all three of us are like, dude, I think this is going to be the one that we wear more often. And of course, I've got disruption out the wazoo, so it's going to keep getting worn. But I'm ready to get that, here's the nice thing about it, from a Huntworth standpoint, and all of my listeners know we have been partnered with Huntworth for 4 years now, and we're huge fans. Here's the nice thing about it: you can get yourself fully set up in disruption or Tarnin, and then get yourself fully set up on Vertek and still spend less than you did for other brands on one setup, maybe not even an entire setup. And so you can like say, hey, it's mid-spring right now, I'm going to run out in Vertek. Or you know what, it's a little bit late winter, and disruption does really good in late winter. It's got a lot of browns in it. So you can like play around, and it gives you like that ability to not be bored, because you're wearing a different pattern, going coyote hunting than you were, deer hunting in early season, or when you're out elk hunting, you can wear, one day and you got all stinky. And so you put the disruption pattern on the next morning or whatever. And it's a gorgeous pattern in my opinion. So we're excited that it's available now for our people to start consuming. So
it's cool.
Yeah. We're excited about it. So what plans do we have for it? I mean, it's going to go, we're going to get it going with every different offering. So the Durham pants, the Elkins, every different offering that Huntworth has. And then she's just going to hit the ground running, hopefully.
Oh yeah, she's ready to roll. She's completely live on the website right now. By the time you're listening, it's definitely for sure. It's everything from our lightweight to heavyweight. We have a few odds and ends, like we didn't have our base layers ready to go for this year. We didn't have a backpack ready to go this year in Vertek. We're making some adjustments to those, so we didn't want to bring them to market just yet. But pretty much 90+% of the lineup, heat boost, midweight, lightweight, heavyweight, windproof, waterproof, it's all in Vertek. It's all been tested. I mean, I've worn almost every single piece, either for photography or for hunting, for us to actually see what it looks like in the woods in Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania, you name it. Guys have been testing in Illinois. You guys have down in Missouri, Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, South Dakota, Idaho. It's been tested across the board. And we just every single time we get feedback and we see images and videos, we're like, yes, there it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
That's it. We did
Yep.
it. It's great. And we had a lot of requests for people to kind of bring in, and it's coming back, is the older style camo colors. The kind of the rust browns, the olive drab, whatever. But those patterns greatly lack depth. The typical BDU military style. And so we wanted to bring in that older style color palette into the modern design. And so if you look, for the YouTube viewers, you can see I got kind of this rusty brown color. Here's an OD green. Here's a darker brown. You get that BDU color palette of traditional camo. But
Yep.
then you notice tons of fine details. You get patches of white next to a dark. And so you get this contrast. You get all this depth that when you're out at distance, you're up close, the finer details can take over. The bigger macro pattern, to get a little technical, can take over. And you don't just turn into a brown blob either direction. And so we were really proud that we were able to bring a pattern to market that has the color schema that people have been really craving the past couple of years, but bring it into a modern design that really actually uses all the technology we have to test these patterns now, instead of just being, yeah, you look like a tree, yeah, you look like a pile of leaves, or whatever it may be.
Yeah. Testing it out for you guys was one of the best and worst experiences I've ever had. Because it was like, this is fun as hell. But then I'm like, oh crap, I can't take a picture and post it
Can't
online because
post
I'm
it.
wearing Vertek. I
No.
remember, I think I sent you these pictures. First time I went saddle hunting, I was like, this is awesome. I'm gonna get some awesome pictures, and I'm taking pictures, and I'm thinking about putting them on Instagram. I'm like, shit, I'm wearing Vertek. I can't.
Yep.
And
We
so I
had
sent them to you.
so many guys text me, hey, I just shot a really cool buck. Awesome, man. Yeah, I did it in Vertek. And now I have to drag my Tarnin set out here to take a grip and grin picture to hide the. I was like, oh, sorry. I mean,
I
it
wish
is
we
what
would have
it
been smart
is.
enough to do that. Because like later in the season, we were hunting in our regular patterns, I guess you'd call them, the disruption and the Tarnin, and like Micah killed that huge deer, and we didn't have our Vertek with us.
Mm-hmm.
And so all of his pictures are in his Tarnin, which whatever. I mean, still awesome looking pictures, but we're like, we should have had the Vertek in the truck. So you could have changed and then like at
Mm-hmm.
least, got him some cool pictures. But the working class guys did a good job at that. We did not do as good a job at
Yeah,
that.
they
But
were able to hide it a little bit easier. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
I'll tell you what, like I took my son out with me one time, and I had to be like, listen, you can't tell anybody about what I'm wearing.
Mm-hmm.
But then like we'd be ready to go, and then a buddy'd be going hunting with us, and we'd have to be like, we gotta change, because we can't wear it, with him or whatever. And so it was like so much fun, but it was the worst thing ever because we had to like use our brains about where we're going and who's with us. Because we don't want to be the people that get this cat out of the bag. So it was awesome testing it. And like I said, like we did different things. I'd get up in a tree and Micah would look at me and like, what do you see? Like what's going on? And I'd get into some brush and, just kind of test it and see what we thought. So
Mm-hmm.
we're excited about the pattern, man. If you haven't checked it out yet, get on Huntworth's website, huntworthgear.com. Check out the new Vertek pattern. Also a badass name, whoever came up with it. Well done. But yeah, I think that's all I got for you, man. It's been a pleasure talking archery and a little bit of camo with you. But before we hop off, why don't you let people know how they can check out your YouTube channel and any other final info you want to give them?
Absolutely. You can always follow me, Check Archery on YouTube. You can find us Facebook, Instagram, Check Archery. If you're in the Northeast, you're in Pennsylvania, you need a new home shop. I know obviously you guys are in the Midwest, but if you're a listener and you're in Pennsylvania, New York, Maryland, Ohio, Delaware, whatever, 21 North Front Street, Phillipsburg, PA, you're always welcome. We always love helping people out with their bows, regardless of whatever the project may be, from big to small. So yeah, definitely go. And then of course, follow Huntworth, Facebook, Instagram. Check us out on huntworthgear.com. Check out all the great stuff we have in Vertek and, of course, in Tarn Disruption, which are not going anywhere. I'm going to make it very clear. We have 3 awesome patterns. Nothing's getting phased out. So don't start panicking. If you want to panic buy, have at it. But no, everything's staying put. And we're very happy to bring Vertek into the family of camos.
Right on. Well, Nate Sellers, we appreciate you coming on today, man.
It's my pleasure, Nate. Thank you.
All right, we'll see you.